Our best to try to do this show. I'm not sure what is going on. Trying to see if Dr. Diane is on here right now. It has been a challenge this evening to actually get you guys on here. There you go. You can see me a lot better. To get you on here to have this conversation about healing hearts and breaking cycles. Clearly somebody needs to hear this because we have been working on this for an hour. After this is not a challenging portal to use, but I want to see if Dr. Diane can get on here. One of the reasons I decided to do this this Be Live, I decided to do it because after the interview with my mother last week, there were lots of inboxes and emails, and the way my mother flowed last week, I wanted her to just continue to pour out. I did not want to make it a teachable moment or minister to her at that point. I wanted to allow her the freedom to pour out. And then what I decided to do was bring on a clinician who could then assist us and help us through this process of figuring out and navigating some of the nuggets my mother left us with and some of the challenges that she's still having. Crazy enough, Dr. Diane Campbell is someone I've known for some time. She is a licensed practitioner, clinician at my church. So she has the clinical side, the spiritual side, as well as the experience. And for some reason tonight, we are being hindered from going forward. I've even tried to put her on Facebook Live itself, and that has not happened. That's very true. What she has to offer tonight, someone definitely needs it and wants it, definitely needs it tonight. And that's just the hindrance, because this is a very easy platform to use. What my husband has suggested, and we're going to do this, I'm going to set everything up for next Tuesday. We're going to go live once again, but Dr. Diane and I are going to try to be in the same building, same place, same time. I do not want to miss this opportunity because I know someone needs it. So let me say this while I'm on camera. Since I can't get her on, I do want to say on camera though, thank you for every email that was sent, every DM that was sent pertaining to your relationships with your mother, with your father, your parents, and just the conversation as to how you feel and yes! I just started talking and there you are. Yeah. Girl, we was gonna do this next week. I am so grateful. Look at there. So just started talking and sharing, and there she popped up. And normally Be Live does not allow you to go live until the other person is actually on. And for some reason, it was showing that you were on, but I couldn't hear you, and I couldn't see you. And you could see me and hear me, but I could not you. So I was just sharing with everyone, and you probably heard it. No, I didn't. Okay. So everyone, I was telling you today when we talked briefly, we had so many inboxes and emails concerning my mother's interview. I know you watched it, and when I asked you to come on, and it was amazing to me how the people responded to hearing my mother's heart, watching her pour out. Mm-hmm. And as I said before you came on, I did not want to make it a ministering moment to my mother at that moment, because she had a lot to say. And yes, there's scripture and there's things that I've done and learned throughout life that I could have poured into her, but I just wanted her to pour out. And tonight I wanted to bring you on because I know a bit of your story, and I know a bit of who you are. And when somebody comes to me with certain issues through my SOD class, where I send them, Dr. Diane. I do. I send them straight to you. I'll be like, I think Dr. Diane can help you. And that has a lot to do with who you are spiritually, but also as a woman. I've gotten to know a bit of you about your journey, and I just felt it was necessary to have you on. You were the one who popped up in my mind, and even my husband confirmed while we were sitting on the beach last week, and it was like, it's Dr. Diane who's going to do this with me. And so, Dr. Diane, I want you to introduce you to the people. Tell them where you're from, your background, your education, and then we'll jump into the interview.
Okay. So I'm Diane Campbell. Torri and I met at Free Chapel, but I'm originally from Savannah, Georgia. Born and reared there. Moved up to North Georgia back in, I believe, 99. Working in higher ed. I took a job at North Georgia. Well, I guess it's University of North Georgia now. Back in 98, I believe. And, after a 21-year career in higher education, the Lord said it was time for me to come back. I was in Ohio for 11 years. I knew it was time to come back to Georgia, and I came back thinking that I would continue my career in higher education. However, the Lord has a plan for us, and he opened the door for me to begin counseling at Free Chapel. So that is what I'm doing now. I've been doing that since January of 2015. And it's a very rewarding opportunity. I mean, the counseling, when I enrolled in the Masters of Counseling program back in early 2000, I believe, I never did it thinking I was going to actually work in counseling. But I guess the Lord knew that. And so he just, put that in the plans. And when the time came, he planted me back here. So I've been counseling now professionally for 3 years.
Okay.
I am a mother. I'm a mother of 3, a grandmother of 12, married, but have been living apart from my 15 years now. Sometimes I lose count, but 15 years. Uh-oh, did I freeze up?
Just a little bit.
Let me try
You keep coming back, so it's okay. We're going to press through because someone needs this. Because even that story about your husband, we are women, we are people, we are men, and we have experiences that people go, what? So telling a bit of that journey, I know that you married your husband. There were some issues there. You got a divorce, and then what happened?
Yeah. Married him again because I was just trying to fix it, Jesus.
Come on.
So yeah. So, but I know now at 57, I know that because I am a Christian and because the church dictates that when you get married, you're married for life. I know that a lot of women find themselves in relationships that the Lord did not tell them to enter into, but they want to be obedient once they've done this, and they stay in unhealthy relationships. So they are, for the sake of appearance. Let me just throw that in. It's for the sake of appearance, so that they can get that little stamp of approval from their other Christian friends, and that she's married, and what I know for sure is there are a lot of people in a marriage sleeping in separate rooms.
Come on.
There are people in a marriage, no intimacy, no sex. I mean, upwards of 7 years, some people 10 years. I mean, you learn this in a counseling setting, and it's sad. It is sad that women stay in these relationships because they think that's what the Lord wants them to do when they never consulted the Lord in the first place.
Come on.
Let me make that clear. They never consulted the Lord. They saw the man that they claimed as their Boaz.
Wanted him. Yeah.
Planned the wedding, got married, and then they try to save the man, So I'm just saying.
Evangelize dating and marriage all in one. It does not work, people.
Yeah.
It does not work. And that goes into some of the nuggets. Last week my mother hit on some major points that I told you I wanted to address, because that's even part of it. When we're picking this man based off of what we think he should be, or what we think we want as a husband, before you even get to know who he really is. And when I allowed my mother, the opportunity to come on here and share the way that she did, I didn't have any clue as to what she was going to say and how she was going to say it. But the impact she had by talking about the brokenness and wanting to be whole, but not knowing how to be whole. And even that scenario, how that was created from her childhood in the household with her family. That's what I want to talk to you about tonight, because wholeness is a challenging thing for us all, especially as believers, right? Even if we're not fully Christian and committed at this point, we believe something, right? We have some level of faith, especially the people watching our page. I know I have people of all different faiths on this page. And part of each individual faith is some level of spouse, companion, partner. And we're all trying to figure out how to find that person. In your experiences, like what you heard my mother say, how do you resolve your childhood and what you learned there, and your adult life and what you want to pick in your partner? What have you learned?
Oh, let me tell you, it's something about being 50. I have come into myself at 50.
Okay.
and what I've learned, because I really have, I look back, listen, I don't want this battery to die on us. So hold on, let me get this, because I'm about to tell y'all something right now. I am. Hold on for a second. I don't know if you needed that light, but so what I've come to understand is that we, if we're not whole, if we don't know who we are, how can we enter into a relationship?
Come on, Jesus. Y'all know this needs to be fixed, because she's about to say something. Hey, Wendy, this is just hilarious to me tonight. She popped off.
Yeah.
She popped off, y'all. She put her computer, she put the plug in, and now it bumped her off. Oh, Lord Jesus. I know somebody needs to hear this tonight. This has been the most challenging,
don't make a whole person
Live I have ever had.
And we go into it trying to fix him because we can't see the wrong in ourselves.
She can hear.
And so wait, hold on, Torri. This
while we're
not charging, and I don't want us to cut off. So I'm going to put this phone down for a minute, but y'all just let that marinate for a minute, and I'll be right back.
How do you resolve being whole? How do you, when you experience a breakup that's traumatic, how do you resolve getting back to your wholeness, getting back to yourself? Because in relationships, we lose ourselves sometimes because maybe we're trying to be someone we're not. Maybe we are trying to fit this mold, like Dr. Diane said, that the church or our religious upbringing wants us to fit. Maybe we're just trying to get the approval of society. And so I want you guys to chime in and talk about, you can hear her. I can't hear her. What is going on? I can't hear her nor see her. This is funny. You guys are like, you're stepping all over, you're talking all over. I'm not trying to, I promise. And I'm not going to end this broadcast. I promise you I'm not. Because I know that this is supposed to be heard. She dropped now. She's back, kind of. Ah! What happened? And they could hear you, but I couldn't hear nor see you.
Oh, okay. All right. The devil is a liar.
Yes,
it's just a liar.
Yeah, look, my husband said the devil is a liar.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay,
so you said, what I heard you said at 50, what you've learned is,
I finally at 50 knew who I was, and the one thing that I have come to realize is we have to know how we present ourselves in a relationship. Who do you show up as? And so if you're not clear about who you show up as, your spouse got somebody who he's like, now who is this? You think you're showing up as one person, as this dutiful wife, but you're showing up as a mother. You telling him, what to wear, what to do, when to come home, who he can hang with, how long he can hang out, all that kind of stuff. You're playing the mother role. He didn't want to marry his mother. He wanted a wife, So are we that person? Are we showing up as the mother? We have to be clear about that. And if you don't know who you are and how you show up, and you enter into a relationship, with this spouse, you're going to have conflict because y'all are not on the same page. And if he doesn't know who he is, and he shows up as the representative, both of you are representing something that you're not.
Right.
And so you have a big mess. You have a big mess.
Whether married or dating, in a relationship, and you have children, or you're dating and now you've created children in a big mess. Yes. People don't know each other. And I don't have children, but what I've learned is once a woman's pregnant and children are coming, that's a real sobering moment. You start to figure out who you are real quick and who you are not in that situation. Mm-hmm. And too often, what I get to see is the breakup, right? So I get to see people who break up. And so once they start finding out who they are, Dr. Diane, how do people go about finding who they are? That's one of the biggest challenges, I hear in my class all the time. How do I know my calling? How do I know who I am? How did you discover at 50 who you are?
Yeah. Well, you know what? People are not honest. They're not honest about who they are. They're not honest with themselves. So how can they be honest with someone else?
Okay.
They're not honest.
And so,
so they enter into this relationship, as, someone they want to be, but inside they're not that person. We all have flaws.
How do you communicate the honesty of who you are?
You got to be alone with yourself. Ooh. You got to be, you have to have that come to Jesus moment and ask the Lord to show me, and don't get scared when you see it. Just take it in and understand what you need to work on. You got to work on stuff, and don't enter into a relationship. If you're doing that alone with yourself thing with you and Jesus, don't go out and enter into a relationship. That's not the time. It's not fair to the other person. You don't know who you are.
Yeah.
You don't know who you are. So when the Lord starts revealing those things to you, and you start working on, he peels back one layer at a time. He peels back a layer, you work on that. He peels back another layer, you work on that. He will never reveal something that's too much for you to handle. So if he reveals it, then he will heal it. He certainly will, but you got to own it.
And how do you recognize when God is revealing something, since you put it out there? People struggle with all of these different things because we'll say, well, something told me, and it's like, no, that was the Holy Spirit. That was your inner,
They know. They are in denial. They're in denial. You know yourself when you see yourself. You know yourself.
That's true.
You see, you want to be different, but you don't want to do the work. So you deny that is who you are. You see? So it's not that they don't know. And when people say, how do I know what's my calling? If they don't know their calling, it's because they don't have that alone time with the Lord. You see, and the calling may not be what they want it to be, so they're not accepting it.
Yes, that's very true. Because even when you talk about the alone time, that alone time, I'm going to tell you, I spent a lot of that time. You know, we try to use that scripture. God didn't call us to be alone. God said man should not be alone. There was a season when Adam was alone. And clearly, if Adam was alone, then there was a season when Eve was not with him. And I know he pulled her out of his rib and all of that. Y'all got to like, come on, like look at this realistically. There was a time when he spent this time alone preparing. And that's what we have to do. It is a very painful thing to do. It is not easy. I always tell people you have to sit in the house until the walls stop talking, because that stuff will talk to you in your head. And what we do is we get on social media, we leave the house, we don't know how to sit still. One of the comments last week when we were talking about why single moms don't really know how they feel or what they're thinking, she made the statement that so often single moms don't take the time to sit in their choices. And so talk about that, because although you were married, you still were, you know, that's part of the definition of fatherless. You had a husband who was on drugs, you have children, and you had to take care of them. How did you ever get a chance to sit in your choices? And if you did, when was that?
You mean when you say sit in my choices, you mean my choice to marry a man that was not ready to be a husband and father?
Yes.
Listen, that's a story for another time, but I'll give you the short version.
Yes, give me the short version.
When I realized that I married the wrong person, I was in college. I started college at 30. And it seems like the more education I got, the further apart we grew. And that's when I realized, wait a minute, we don't want the same thing in life. He didn't see any point in me going to school. You know, why, you know, when I got the bachelor's degree, why wasn't that enough? Why did I have to go and get a master's degree and then another master's degree? And by the time I got the PhD, he was long gone. But I can't even blame it all on him. Evidently, I didn't know what I wanted if I married a man who education wasn't important to him. So it's really unfair to put that all on him. I played a role in that. I should have known what I wanted. I should have known.
When you think about women who don't have the opportunity to sit in their choices and they don't want to sit alone, or they're a single mom and they have all this chaos going on, how do you talk to them and get them to sit in it so that they can find out who they are, what they want, and then be able to make better choices? And even for men, my mother said men and women are broken. How do we get to places, people, let me say it that way, to sit in our choices? You just owned your part in it. So often my single mamas won't own their part.
Yeah, you got to own your part.
The part is forced on them to own it. They got to own all of it. And so how do you teach someone to sit in their choices, Dr. Diane?
All right, Torri. So, you know, I can remember when my life took a turn for the better for me. At 30, I got married at 18. I wanted to go to college, but my mother could not see how she could pay for me to go to college. So what did I do? I was 18. She was at work one day. I just went to the courthouse and got married. Had no reason to get married. None. Wasn't pregnant. No. I just thought, well, hey, she can't stop me from doing this, you know. So I got married. Always wanted to go to college. So at 30, after having 3 kids, I reevaluated my life. I really did. I looked at where we were going, and I didn't like the direction we were headed in. And what can I do to change this? And it went back to getting an education. And that's when things really changed for me. I said, you know, I'm not going to be struggling, you know, to pay my bills every month. Every week, we had $25 to $30 for groceries. That's with 3 kids, 2 adults. And I still know what we got every week: chicken, ground beef, pork chops, a bag of rice, some milk, you know, sugar. I mean, $25, $30 wasn't going to go very far.
No.
Okay. So once I started that journey, you know, to getting a higher education, and I'm telling you, it was a struggle, but I fought my way through. 2 years into college, my car broke down. I purchased a bicycle, a boy's bike. I put the two little ones on. Yeah, I never shared that story with you.
No.
Put them on that bicycle, rode them to the daycare, dropped them off, and rode on to college. I sure did.
And that's the part, like you just said, you kept hearing higher education. You kept hearing that. And every time you tried to go a different direction, it kept pointing you to higher education. Yeah. Your choices has to do with listening. And like you said, being honest. And not enough of us will sit and listen to what we are telling ourselves, because all it is will distract you. But your heart,
you just said it,
every single time, every single time. And so and that's the other part. That's when people give up. You didn't give up. So daddies, as soon as you do what is right, hello, I'm trying to get on here tonight. As soon as you try to do what is right, the obstacle will come to test whether or not you truly believe it. And that's what Dr. Diane is saying. Her car breaks down. So does she drop out of school? No, she gets a bicycle, y'all, and puts them babies on the back and rides them to daycare and keeps on trucking to school. Now, see, that's faith, and that's determination. Yeah. And I don't think often enough we say we want this type of relationship, going back to the relationship piece. We say we want this type of relationship, but we're not willing to do the work, as you said, and we're not really willing to persevere through the challenges that come when we have to work. And so that's the part that I think we really miss as individuals, because I'm married and this thing is not perfect. He's on here. This thing is not perfect. And when we have challenges, the first thing people try to say, well, did God tell you to marry that man? Yes, he did. And I could answer that without question and without doubt. Because you know what I did, Dr. Diane?
What?
30 days before we went to get married, I left Atlanta, went to Charlotte, North Carolina for a week with some friends who were married. And when they would go to work, I would go be alone.
Yeah.
And I went and sat by the lake. I would go tour certain things in their area, but I would just be alone, just me and God listening. And by the time, I think it was day 3 or 4, I heard my spirit say, go do what I told you to do. And that was marrying him. Yeah. And so I can answer that without question. And like you said, not enough people can answer that. And it has to do with we're speaking and we're talking from these broken places. Yes, absolutely. And so what do you tell someone from their brokenness, how to heal? Because one of my favorite scriptures is, he came to heal the brokenhearted. Yes. As I said to you earlier, God never promised that we wouldn't be broken. He just promised that he would make us whole. He would fix it. And the cracks and crevices are testimonies and testaments as to what we've been through. So when people are broken and they come to you, what are some of the tools you give them to get back to wholeness? Well, we have to really get to that broken place. Why? What are you feeling? Where is it coming from? What triggered this in you? Okay, and what can you do to change it? Yeah. What can you do? Because we can't, sometimes we go through stuff we can't change. Ooh. So we have to accept it. You see, you can't change someone else. You can work on yourself, but you can't change another person. You can't. So in a relationship, the question to ask is, if this person never changed, can I stay in this relationship? If they never change that thing that's getting on my nerves, can I stay? All right. And then when you're in that broken place, you have to be honest about the role you played in it. What did you do to get to where you are? You get there. Yes. And so let's say I'm not married, but I'm single. I want to date. I'm dating different men, but I'm broken.
Mm.
What do you tell a single person who's broken?
Yeah, when single people, broken people really need, when you said you spent that time alone, they really need to spend the time alone. Be honest, write it out. This is who I am. People come with different experiences. You have women who've been molested, raped, abused, and the potential husband or fiance or boyfriend, they don't know anything about it. And that will manifest itself at some point, and the man don't know what hit him. You see, so woman needs to deal with that. Don't go in a relationship with that baggage, because a smell could trigger it. He could say something, raise his voice, cologne, anything could trigger it, and now they're going crazy.
Wow, I never thought about that.
Yes, because you're broken, and you haven't addressed it.
Right, you suppress this brokenness.
Yes,
okay, I'm going to show you some of these comments. So, Angela Carr Patterson, she runs a fatherless daughter program, and I believe South Carolina. She said, "Great conversation."
Yes.
My husband chimed in. See, I didn't know this. He said, "I disconnected from family and friends for a while before we got married. Some time by the pond at my mother's house. Laugh out loud, black guy thinking time." He's so silly. And so, I think even when I witness my mother and some of the things she shared, I told you earlier, what people do not know is that volatile relationship and that challenging relationship my mother and I had for many years off and on. It was something that was difficult to shift from child to adult for both of us.
Yes. Yeah.
I was always still talking to her from child, and she was always talking to me as you are my child. And as an adult, you're trying to find your voice in the midst of those things.
Yes.
And you're wanting to get to know your parent as an adult. And a lot of women who were chiming in last week kept saying, "I wish I could talk to my mother like this." And then we had those emails where they said, "I called my mother. I'm still debating on calling my mother." You even talked about earlier something that you thought watching it. Why?
Yeah. Well, I felt like I wanted to call my mother. That was very touching, and I said, I wanted to call her, but something that I shared with you today is I don't feel safe being vulnerable with my mother. So that is something, that's some baggage that I carry. So if I don't think, I can be safe around you crying, or really sharing what I'm really feeling, so I'm holding that in. And so I opted not to call her because I know that it will cause me more harm than good if she doesn't accept that.
Okay. See, that's good, because that was even a place where my mother and I happened to be. And I think that's a good point to make. So often we want to talk to our mother, and then we end up talking to our mother or our father. And there's more harm and trauma done because we didn't listen to, maybe this isn't the time. Even when you got on the phone, you got that far, and maybe they started sharing something and you're like, okay, they're not even thinking about me, but you still shared that moment. And now there's extra trauma or devastation on top of the original devastation. You have to be willing to listen to your instinct, to Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call that thing at this moment, in this second. You've got to be willing to listen to it. And you did. And that's no attack on you or your mother. You listened and said, this might not be the reason to do that.
Right. Well, Torri, here's what I know. You see, if my mother has not healed from those broken places in her, this I know for sure. She's not showing up as my mother. Ooh. She's not showing up as a mother. She's showing up as that broken little girl or that broken young adult. So she can't be the mother because she's still hurting. And I know that, but she doesn't realize I know that, or I take that back. I think she does know that I know that, because we've had some very deep conversations. And when I try to take her there, she'll shut down. And
Really?
she said, yeah, she said, I know what you're trying to do. You see, yes. So she doesn't want to go there. And I know that it's hard for her, Torri. So I don't take her there. I don't take her there because she has to want to go there.
That's very true.
Yeah, I can't force her. Can't force her to go there.
And that's what we have to remember about our mothers and our fathers. Yeah. They're not just our parents. They are men and women with stories, with history, with ideas and stuff that's happened to them back here that we were never a part of. We weren't born at that time. We don't know what they've experienced. And me last week, getting to know and chipping away at times, getting those stories from her, gave me a place of compassion and empathy for her. And I saw her as a woman. Finding my father not easy for my mother to deal with. And I watched it. I knew. And I knew because just like any other mama whose daddy I reunite or whatever, they'd be like, I've been here all this time and then he wants to show up.
Yeah.
You know? And so there's this problem, but I spent the time getting to know her and it took a lot of work. It took a lot of patience over the last year and a half to get to know my mother as a woman. And that's what you're saying. My mother still, your mother's still showing up. She's a woman, but she's still showing up as a little girl, responding to you that way.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, and it's okay, because what I did some years ago, in my mid-30s, I pulled out my birth certificate and I looked at it and I said, okay, I was born September 7th, 1960. Says it right here. I had a mother and a father right there on the birth certificate, a mother and a father. They were married, you know, and I knew that, so what happened? I looked at the age of my mother. She was 17 and my father was 31.
Wow.
And I started putting it all together. What I have come to realize, my mother at the age, she had 5 kids. And if that wasn't bad enough, I was one of those 5 kids. And I was rebellious. You know, I didn't know she was 21. My mother.
Yeah.
She was my mother, but she was only 21. She didn't know what to do with 5 kids. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. So here she is with 5 parents. And back then, my father had to pay child support. They only had him pay $15 a week for 5 kids. And when I found out that my mother was getting $15 from my father, I asked her for my $3. I wanted my $3. Yes. You know, so I was that kind of child.
Oh, yeah. You was like, you did the math. It was like, I get $3 out of that.
Come on, get my $3. There's some candy and cookies that need to be bought with that, you know. So, but it helped me at 35. It helped me understand my mother better. You know, I understood, you know, where, you know, she struggled. She struggled with us, but she was a strong woman. My mother was a strong woman bringing us up. You know, we had to be in when the street lights came on. We didn't get to go to basketball games and football games when my friends were out there, you know, sleeping around. We didn't get to do all that stuff. She wasn't going to have it. Not at all. With 4 girls, my mother was counting pads. She knew every time, you know, she was on top of it.
Got you. And see, even when you talked about your parents.
You see, so once I was able to really understand where she was coming.
Uh-oh. She's frozen a bit. We're going to let the internet kick back in. This has been the most awesome.
Okay,
yep, you're breaking up on your end, so that's what it was. Freezing. Okay, you're back. But you were saying your mother, you were talking about your mother at the end and how strict she was, but she's frozen. Are you frozen?
Right now you freeze. Yeah.
I see you freezing up.
All right, go ahead. Now,
so one of the things I wanted to say, because even talking to my mother last week, I shared this with you. You know, those of you who watched that interview, you would swear full God, my mother was raised in a single parent household. And she was not. My grandparents were married until my grandfather died. Okay. Now they definitely had their things and their issues. And I know there were bouts of separation. But for some reason, my mother had the biggest issue with her mother. And it played out in her interview last week. My grandfather was around. He had his ways about him, but so did my grandmother. And, you know, I jokingly when I tell people the story, my grandmother, she was the type of woman, she had that cigarette hanging out her mouth and the ashes on her hand, and she'd be talking to you, you'd be like, the ashes, you waiting for the ash to drop, and she just, she cleaned up. See, I'm even sitting next to a picture of my grandmother. This is my grandmother, you guys. This is Doris. Okay. Cute as can be, always dressed, right? But, woo, she was a firecracker. That's all I got to say. And so, you know, listening to my mother have that conversation, and even you talk about your parents, when you were born and you were conceived, they were married.
Yes.
You look at your mother and her age and how old he was, and you start putting it all together. Children, that's what parents need to know. Your children are putting the story together. Way before you know they're putting it together. What happens? Right. One of the questions I do want to ask you is, what happens when a parent finds out that their children are putting the story together? Do they retreat? Do they tell them the truth? Do they lie? What do they do typically that you learn in counseling?
Yes, parents retreat. They don't want to tell them. They don't want to tell them the truth. You know, they don't want to tell them the truth because it hurts. Because they want to be this, once again, this representative to their kids. But the worst thing we can do is not share the truth with our children. Yeah. I was talking to a mother today whose daughter is struggling with homosexuality. And the daughter, you know, I said, you need to just talk to her. And she said she did. And she told her daughter, you know, I struggled with that as well when I was a teenager. And the daughter was like, really? And that the daughter opened up. I mean, we try to make them think we're perfect, and we're not. You know?
And why do you think we do that, even not only to our mate or our partner or our spouse? Why do you think we want to live this, I guess,
lie?
You make it this lie. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because we just want to be perfect. We just want you know, we want to appear to have it all together.
Okay.
The worst thing we could ever do to our children. You know, when I was in school, my girls, they thought, you know, so because I made it look like it was easy, I never shared with them when I didn't pass an exam. I never shared with them when I had to repeat a class.
See, this is the question people want answered, and I know they want this question answered. She's breaking up.
I had to change my major a couple of times.
Okay.
You see, so they thought it was easy. And when they attempted it and it did not work, they were not going to go through with it because they fell short of what their mother had, you know, already done. That's a regret that I do have.
The perception that it was easy and it wasn't tough and there was no struggle. Whoops, are you there?
All right, I think you're frozen again.
Okay, and I see you frozen again. I don't know why. We're going to get this interview, and I know we're going to get it. Uh-oh, she's gone. See? I see my husband on here talking about snake tamer Doris. I see you, Varric. I will tell you, my grandmother was, I said it last week, she was who she was. And let me say this while, I'm waiting for Dr. Diane to get back on. Even in this moment, we were supposed to be on at 7. We didn't get on here till 8 something? And I want people to know that you just can't quit just because something's challenging. You just can't give up and stop just because something isn't going the right way, especially if you're married. Now, if you're in an abusive relationship or, a situation that is not healthy for you, I'm not here advocating that you stick around and you stay in it. But some of us give up way too soon. That was one of the things that God had impressed upon me in one of the most challenging times in my marriage. He began to take me through the journey that he takes us all through, the process that he takes us all through when we are not in line with him. And there's a place of repentance, there's a place of exile, and then there's a place of captivity because you find yourself further and further away. And God said, while I was reading those particular chapters in the book of Hosea, it was impressed upon me, and I know God was speaking, and he simply said, you know what? At the end of the day, most people give up too soon. And so they never see the reward at the end of the tunnel. They never see the light at the end of the tunnel because they give up on the relationship too soon. Because none of us are perfect. We all come into a relationship, whether it's dating or you are married, with some baggage. Now, as Dr. Diane stated, you should spend time solo, all alone. I call it listening to the walls talk. And until they stop talking, you have more work to do on yourself. But you need to spend that time by yourself in order to heal enough to step into a relationship knowing who you are. I stepped into my marriage knowing exactly who I am, exactly what I wanted out of life. Now, some things have shifted and you realize what it really is and what it can and cannot be. But I knew who I was and I knew what I wanted. And so I presented that to the person that I was marrying. Some of you aren't presenting that, even in the dating scenario. And so you find yourself trying to figure out, what am I going to tell him? What does he want? And so you shift into something that's not who you are. And later on you show up and he's confused about why this person is showing up. When it comes to our parents and learning who they are, and like Dr. Diane was talking about, that little girl should have known that her mother had struggled with homosexuality, and then it would have helped her be able to approach her mother and have that talk. We're not telling our children the truth, and that has so much to do with how we respond to our parents. The moment we start responding to our parents as the adult and not as the wounded child, we will find ourselves having better relationships with our parents. Too many of us are responding from the place of our initial trauma. So think back to the age that you were when you had that initial trauma. That is the age that you were responding to your parent. I remember friends telling me dad walked out at 13, and when you watch them respond to their parents, they're 13 responding to their parents. Although they may be 33, 40, they're still 13 in that moment. And so we have to get past. It's not a place of disrespect either. I know some cultures we teach, to talk to a parent and get into all these things. We think it's disrespectful. I don't see it as disrespectful as long as you approach it from a respectful place. Yeah, Shantae, don't respond from the perspective or the age of your initial trauma. I'm going to put that up. That's what Shantae just said. She said, she was repeating what I said. Don't respond from the perspective of your initial trauma. That is what I have witnessed. It's actually called arrested development. I have witnessed that. I have seen it in the children that I work with through Fatherless Generation. And that's the adult children. I'm not talking about the kids. I'm talking about the adult children. Too often, we don't want dad to show back up. We don't want to get back involved in looking for him, or when he wants to come back, we be Build-A-Bear. And what I mean by that is, you know how you go to the mall and you build a bear, you put the stuffing in, you pick out the outfit, what you want, and then you stuff it and you put the heart where you want it, you put the shoes on it, you put the outfit. That's the kind of daddy y'all trying to get. That's the kind of mama y'all trying to get too. You wanted her to be something that she probably wanted to be, but couldn't be because she doesn't have the ability to give it to you. And so you have to accept, like Dr. Diane said, you have to accept who your parent is and where they are and what they can give to you. If we accept it, we will get way more than we even imagined that we would get. So I see Mr. Barton here says, how do you address the mother who won't let you go when the father has stepped away, especially when the mother uses the child to hold on or still be connected to the guy? Oh, wow, that's a good one. That is a good one. Well, sometimes that's met with a little, how do I put this? I don't want to say I'm unprofessional, because there are times when I'm definitely professional, but I have to step out of clinical lingo or step out of saying it a certain way. You have to talk to the mother the way that she understands. And some mothers only understand ghettoese, ebonics. And I've had to do that multiple times. My husband has been privy to that. Even one of the single moms who's threatened me and wanted to come for me, the moment that I met her where she was, I wasn't cussing and all of that because that's where she went. But the moment I stood up to her and I didn't back down and I provided her information and tools in the midst of, I was like, that's not proper. That's not the way to go. Like, that's not what you're trying to do. The more I've done that to her, even last week, she asked me if I would be her mother. And the way she asked was, she was like, you know, you love me. Like, because Dr. Diane's trying to rejoin and it won't let her rejoin now. She was saying, you know, you love me like a child, like a child you had out of your own body. And I was like, actually, I don't know what that's like, but I will tell you that I love you. And I know that's something that she needed to hear from me. I know that's something that, I just know that's something she needed to hear. And so, and I do love her. I figured out who she was and where she's coming from. And I had to make the adjustment to trust that her trauma, and let me say it this way, I had to make the adjustment to deal with her from her traumatic place, from her place of trauma. I didn't talk to her like a child, but I talked to her from that place that I knew she had been harmed and she had been hurt. And I dealt with it from a place of love and compassion and empathy. And that drew her in further and further towards me. And now I'm praying about it. I'm praying to see, how do I go about moving forward in that relationship? For some reason, this will not let Dr. Diane back on. I promise you I'm gonna have her back on, because I don't want to, there's so much more that we need to cover. And there's things that I can tell you and things I can share, but I always like to have other experts on, especially as I'm doing this new platform. There are other experts I want to have on so that they can share their journeys and their scenarios with you. I don't know why. I can't even see who's watching anymore. I don't know if Be Live is having an issue. I don't know. But so then this question, when the father does not want the relationship, but wants the child. Oh, okay. I get what you're saying. Well, that's often, right? That happens more often than not. And it goes back into what Dr. Diane said. That happens because the two people didn't know each other, but now he has a child. And hopefully, prayerfully, especially the dads I deal with. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys there are no deadbeats out there. That's not my position. However, my position is I don't believe there's as many deadbeats as we think there are, just based on my numbers and my experiences, and then getting and hearing conversations, the honest conversations from women. Oh, Dr. Diane said it's not allowing her to get back on, so she's going to have to go attend to her grandkids. She would love to do it again soon. We are definitely going to do this again soon. Yeah, and I'm going to go to her next time, like my husband stated. We will do this again very soon. And one of the reasons I chose Dr. Diane, I'm going to tell you, is because it's definitely a distraction. Hey, Kenneth. One of the reasons I chose Dr. Diane is because she not only is a spiritual leader, she's a clinician, and her journey is, to see the stuff she's been through. You guys overheard her stating that she had married, divorced, and then remarried, all for the sake of her faith. And there have been things that I have personally witnessed her growing through. She is now approaching a very challenging season in her life because her oldest daughter died last year, and it was just out of nowhere. There was no sickness, there was no nothing. And so she's now approaching, she's 10 days out from that. That's what she shared with me. And there was no sickness or anything that they knew of. Daughter just died at 36 years old. And so how do you deal with that as a woman? And that's what I want. That's what I always want us to be able to talk about on this platform. As Dr. Diane talked about spending that time alone, I took notes because for me and how I've learned how to be whole, because I do believe I'm whole. I'm not telling you that I've never been broken. And I think that's where we mix what wholeness means up with brokenness and all that. We get confused about it. But wholeness comes when you face the trauma. You face your trauma and you deal with it versus allowing it to deal with you. Okay? Wholeness is when you face your trauma and you deal with it versus allowing it to deal with you. Many of you have trauma from your childhood, from your young adulthood, and even right now, you experienced trauma yesterday. And instead of facing it, as we talked about earlier, you choose to lie to yourself and you choose to tell yourself it didn't happen. You push it down, and then it springs up later on in your journey, in your life's journey. Whether you're in a relationship or not, it will rear its head up and throw all kind of confusion into your life. And so what do you do with that? You got to deal with it then. You can't push it back down because there is a season in your life where you will not be able to push it back down. The bottom will fall out. Some people call it a midlife crisis. You can't keep stuffing it forever. Eventually, it's going to pop back up. And when it comes to fatherless children, we love to stuff down. We love to hide how we feel, what we're thinking. What do you mean feel? There's no feeling here. The only feeling, especially a lot of fatherless boys experience, is anger. That's the one they know. That's the one they tap into. And that tends to be men in general as well. Look, I'm going to put this up here in just a moment, but that's the one that men tend to tap into, is that anger piece. They get anger. And I hate to tell men, but anger is an emotion. It's a feeling. And most of it is rooted in fear. It's rooted in you being a scared little boy. And so how you manifest that fear is through anger. Someone touches a spot and asks you about your dad. Oh, don't be asking me. It's all this defensiveness. It's all coming at you. That is because you are really a hurt little boy. And it's like what I said earlier. We have to stop responding from that wounded child place and really deal as adults. We have to deal with our lives from an adult place. I know you guys want to run from it. I've always wanted to run from it. But what I've learned through walking through these things is it gets so much better on the other side. What I do want to share with you as well is last week when I did the interview with my mother, and for those of you who are on tonight and you didn't see the interview, I want you to go back through our feed. It's not too far down, and you can watch the interview. What you guys did not get to hear or to know, and I'm glad you didn't, but I definitely want to share it because it's part of the testimony at this phase. The reason my mother kept talking about talking to me every day and and getting a text message or whatever, because there were seasons when It was too traumatic. I would have to cut her off for a time. It was too traumatic for me to engage her about certain things. So I would cut her off for a month, 6 months. There was even one time where it was a year. And we just always had this very up and down roller coaster ride after I became an adult, and I couldn't understand. And when you can't understand, you respond from that childlike place, that place that's not going to get you the answers or the resolution that you want. So when you guys watched us do that interview, we had been leading up to healing because she is going through inner healing right now with a counselor herself, which opened her up to share these things that she shared last week. But what you watched on that video and that interview was the culmination of our healing. We were being healed on that video last week. And I don't want to not tell you, I don't want to not share that with you, because I think it's so important that you know that it's still a process that we are still going through. And I would say, or we're still going through, and we've talked today, it's important that my mother shares who she is with me, not just as my mommy and my mother, but as a woman. And to hear those stories, some of them I knew, some of them I didn't, as you could see on the interview. And that's what you got to witness last week. So let me see here. Shantae says, face your trauma. We have to heal. You cannot go through this life broken and think that you're going to get anything out of it other than brokenness and attract anything other than broken people. Kenneth says, there is no quantifiable measurement to determine a deadbeat person. The term speaks to our expectations of what a person should deliver, not his capacity to deliver, and nor fully indicative of his finances. It's so true. Kenneth, that is so true. We call a man a deadbeat. And what does that mean? What does that look like? I have a client right now for the last year and a half since they've been separated. Now, when they lived in the home together, he provided everything. She didn't work. Now they've been separated. He has paid for everything. His name was on the car note. His name was when he moved her from where he was to where he knew he was going to be retiring and transferring to. His name was on the apartment, on the lease, because she didn't have a job. She couldn't get it. She couldn't get the apartment. I saw the statements. He paid $8,000 to move her from one place to the next. He paid for their cable, their food, her car note, all of these different things. And he's called a deadbeat. How's that deadbeat? He paid her rent. Let me make sure I add these things in there. How is that a deadbeat? And that's what we see women calling men deadbeat. Did he want to spend time with his child? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why now he's on the last end of his legitimation with joint custody with visitation. We call men deadbeat because we have an expectation that I don't even know what the expectation is at the end of the day. I mean, to have a man paying for all of those things and you still call him a deadbeat, I don't even know what that means exactly. I don't even know how he could possibly, what does deadbeat mean to you? Is that monetarily? Is that the time that he spends with his child? And what if he's putting all the money up, wants to spend time with the child, but yet, is it because he don't want to spend time with you? Like Mr. Barton said on here earlier, what about a man who just doesn't want the relationship anymore, but he wants the child? That happens often in breakups, because just because he had a child with you doesn't mean that you're going to be able to keep him. Just because you lay down with a man, and this was a conversation that I had earlier, just because you lay down with a man does not mean that you're going, and you have a baby with him, does not mean that he's going to go for the old shotgun wedding situation and marry you. You don't even know what kind of parent he's going to be. He doesn't even know what kind of parent you're going to be. And so when we sit down and we call a person a deadbeat, that becomes really challenging to me, because I don't know what you mean by that, especially when I have witnessed both parties making bad decisions, both parties making bad financial decisions, both parties withholding the child or causing chaos with the child or whatever that is. And then the father has to own all the responsibility. And that's really where I always come from. I know, speaking to individuals in fatherhood and fatherlessness and fathers' rights communities, dads seem to carry all of the negative aspects of the breakup, and the mother comes out as though she was the victim the entire time. That's hard for me. That's hard for me to accept because I'm a woman. And I've sat in rooms where women were like, oh girl, I set his stuff on fire. Oh girl, I'm the girl who sits back and listens to the stuff because I'm like, shouldn't take all of that, but it does. Yolanda Dreyer Buzz sent me a video earlier where a mother confronts a dad at Target with the child. The child's head is hung low. And she's talking to him about he needs to get his child and he needs to be. And he's like, I just got this job. I have to be at work. And before you know it, she runs out of the store, leaving the child standing there. So is he a deadbeat when he loses his job and he can't pay child support? Because I'm sure that's not the first job she's run in on in that situation like that. Like, that was incredible. So is he a deadbeat when he can't pay child support because he loses his job or he lost his job? I don't know why we as women, well, I do know, we've talked about it. It's the brokenness. And so even tonight, I don't want to stay on here much longer just because I know Dr. Diane and I covered quite a bit, but I want you guys to understand that brokenness is not forever. Brokenness is a choice, because if you choose not to do the work, you choose not to sit alone. Some of you are going from this relationship to this relationship to this relationship to this relationship. How? Why? Don't you need a moment to heal? Some of you are afraid to heal and sit in your stuff, because then the truth of who you are and the truth of the decision that you made will then be exposed. And so we've talked about everything from you and your childhood and how you got to these decisions, but you're going to have to sit in those decisions now that you've made them, heal from them totally alone, and get the recovery and the help that you need. If you need tools to get you to that place of wholeness and completion, then I suggest you go find you a licensed therapist, because Dr. Diane and I get on the phone and talk about things, but I do go to her counterpart at the church. I do. You can find me in therapy at least once or twice a month, partially because I have stuff that I have to work through doing the work that I do. And the other part is I hear traumatic stories all day long, and it can be overwhelming. And so I find myself making sure that I go and talk to someone to put that information out and to get all that stuff off of me, but also to resolve some of my broken places, because that's what I wanted you guys to understand as well. Brokenness does not negate you from your calling. Brokenness does not keep God from calling you to do something awesome. Brokenness does not keep you from being a therapist. We're human. And so in being human, you're going to have things that come up. I know people want you to, oh, you got that going on, girl. You need to go sit down. You can't even minister in your own household. Maybe it's not my job to minister in my household. Maybe it's just my job to pray in my household, so that I can't use the Fatherless Generation Foundation in my household. I can't prophesy in my household, but maybe it's my job to pray that God will bring someone who my husband can hear, or your husband can hear, in order for you to get what it is, for him to get what it is he needs, or for your wife to get what she needs. Too often we try to press our spouses to something. Maybe it's not our job. It's just our job to pray. But you won't know that unless you sit, be quiet, sit alone and be quiet, and just allow your trauma to bubble to the surface. Allow your intuition, allow the Holy Spirit to speak to you and give you need. I want to admonish and to really press upon you that the scripture says that God will heal the brokenhearted. And he can't do that by osmosis. He doesn't force it. He doesn't sit you down and make you sit down. It's a decision that you have to make, that you want to be whole. And once you decide to be whole, trust the process of becoming whole. It is not an easy journey, especially if you have trauma that's been pushed down for many, many years, and trauma that's been, suppressed for multiple years. How do you get past it? That means that it's going to take a lot of time alone. And you have to be willing to do that. Even when someone approaches you and they're ready to date you, but you're not ready. You need that time alone. Put them on pause. They'll be there. And if they're not, they weren't meant to be with you. Trust the process, knowing that there's a promise that God will heal the brokenhearted. And if he promised you he would do it, then that means that it's guaranteed. And in it being guaranteed, you just have to do your part. I am Dr. Torri J. Evans-Barton. I am the founder, CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. And what's so beautiful about this journey is I am whole and complete. And I love to share that part of my journey, is that I'm whole and complete. There is nothing missing, nothing broken. But I didn't do it overnight. And I didn't walk into this thing, and it's not that I've never been broken. So I look forward to bringing and coming back on here next Tuesday. Hopefully we won't have as many challenges as we had this week. I know we had a few last week. We had even more this week. So next week, I am probably going to bring on one of my clients. I may bring on the young lady I was telling you guys about last week. She's unfiltered as well, like my mother, but this is a whole nother unfiltered. But I want to bring on individuals who they have life experience. They're not just going to speak down and talk down to you, but they're going to speak to your heart because they've been there, done that. And so as I prepare for next week, just keep praying for me. I do travel to Shreveport, Louisiana tomorrow and Thursday, and then I go to Beaumont, Texas on Friday, and then back home to Atlanta on Saturday. So it's a very busy week for me, but I love what I do. So I'll talk to you guys next Tuesday. All right, bye-bye. You're just gonna